decided to stop taking pictures of Chinese food in 1987. Is that like an official mandate? I like to believe that it was because they really felt like they nailed it, you know? Maybe I should also introduce myself. My name is Chelsea White. I'm a board member here of the Tourette Syndrome Association. I do have my Tourette's in the past few years. It's been pretty under control. I feel very fortunate, but it's not kept me from using it as an excuse. Being unable to attend Game of Thrones themed gender baby reveal showers is one of my tics, so. She was like, I feel like that's not a real thing. I'm like, how dare you? Chelsea, one day you're gonna change your mind about having kids. I'm like, why are you threatening me? We were just having a nice dinner. Chelsea, if you don't have a baby, won't you always be curious? Can we all agree that curiosity may be the world's worst reason to make a permanent life choice? That my friends that want me to have a baby are the same that are minds blown that I got a tattoo, okay? They're like, Chelsea, that's like so permanent. Like, right, you do realize you have to keep the baby, and that my tattoo probably never gonna have a tantrum in the middle of the Kmart. I'm just saying.
Hello and welcome. My name is Griffin Shamanesh. I've had TS all my life. I was diagnosed around the age of 6, and it's been a really long road with lots of obstacles along the way. I faced a lot of challenges, but if you've read my bio, you've seen that I've come a long way. All of you in this room today will see and hear how TS manifests itself, so I won't get into too much detail on how I suffered with TS. I'm not going to talk about how my first grade teacher was scared of my tics, or how people would stare at me in public. Instead, I'm just going to tell you what I do to alleviate it. Meds are, of course, a personal choice, and have really helped my symptoms. But advocating, helping others, becoming a youth ambassador, empowering myself, and of course my family's support has really been a great help for me to overcome TS on a daily basis. I chose to be a YA because I want to help educate others about TS. One of the privileges a YA has is to travel to Washington and lobby to representatives to gain their support, with the hope of getting funding and services for education and treatment. The biggest challenge of TS is social acceptance, and having to sit in school and learn in a conventional setting. My hope is that educators, doctors, parents, and politicians understand TS in a deeper way. About our YA presentation. When we present in the classroom or to anybody, we use a set of visual aids provided to us by the TSA. We go through the series of cards and we add our own little twist, like a personal story, something that happened. Once we finish, we have a Q&A, and we answer any questions that were not answered during the presentation. Now I'm going to hand it over to Yuko, who's going to explain her experience of giving the YA presentation in more depth. Thank you all for being here and supporting the TSA.
I'm going to read you guys an essay. This is, actually I'm a senior in high school. This is my college essay that I send to colleges as I apply to them. And it's basically my journey with Tourette, and I just thought that it's completely appropriate for this event. Okay, so, are you contagious? Asked my disgusted classmate when he saw me making strange movements with my neck. I was 10 years old, and I tried to shrug off the comment, just as I was trying to shrug off any association with the disorder, Tourette syndrome. Today, I'm in a different place mentally and in my community, but getting here wasn't easy. It started freshman year with an email from a research team offering me $50 for a subject of Tourette. I embraced my shallow motivations, took the money, and ran into NYU Medical Center. The semi-traumatic, yet monetarily rewarding experience led to my participation in another research study a year later. For the first time in my life, I faced the reality of the disorder and opened up to discussion. Schoolwork got increasingly tough in the second semester of my sophomore year, and my tics were getting worse by the day. I channeled my frustration and anger into a blog entitled The Tourette Project, a place for me to anonymously share my stories. My posts started off as rants, but soon evolved into uplifting and sometimes humorous anecdotes that readers found enjoyable and comforting. I continue to develop my blog, and I'm proud to say that my subscribers include medical students, casual enthusiasts, and most importantly, those who suffer from the disorder just as I do. My network of friends with Tourette was growing rapidly through the blog, and I felt like I was breaking through my shell of embarrassment. In my mind, I was a fearless internet activist, but in real life, I still tried desperately to avoid any mention of the disorder with my friends. Junior year, I attended my first social gathering with people who had Tourette. We were all buzzing, twitching, squawking, and some of us worse than others. I had known I was on the mild end of the spectrum, and this gathering only proved it. I saw a strange lady, now my friend, squeal a certain phrase as loud as she could every 20 seconds. I was terrified, not because the noises scared me, but because at that moment I realized that this is how people outside of the bubble perceived me. Now I know that I was wrong, but at the time, it was all about me, about how people saw me and whether others were embarrassed by me. I had a long way to go in order to become the courageous, tolerant, unprejudiced activist I wanted to be. My first time addressing a community outside the Tourette bubble also came in junior year. As part of the Tourette Syndrome Association, I traveled to Capitol Hill to thank our congresspeople for funding programs that help educators and doctors better assess the condition, to request continued funding, and to propose a bipartisan congressional caucus focusing exclusively on Tourette syndrome. Voicing my experiences and requests, and knowing that the Tourette community back home was relying on me, was nerve-wracking, but my and my team's research and practice had paid off. The partnership received continued funding, and the Tourette Syndrome Caucus was formed. Today, I'm still the embarrassed 10-year-old I was in that classroom, but more often, I am an internet activist striving to alleviate the struggles of others, and newly, a spokesperson on behalf of the Tourette community. I visit schools to discuss my experiences with students and advise school teachers and administrators on assessing Tourette syndrome and similar mental disorders in the classroom. It's been a long and not always smooth journey on becoming a slightly less embarrassed spokesperson and activist. I still have a ways to go, but I'm happy to say that I'm on my way.
All right.
Okay, so I hope that you guys can understand where I'm coming from. And I can say that I bet a lot of other teens like that also have Tourette are kind of going through a similar process of how I'm trying to become this activist and trying to teach others through the youth ambassador program. But at the same time, I'm struggling to like really accept my own disorder and feel comfortable with Tourette syndrome. So, but I can say that I've grown a lot since I started doing the youth ambassador program back this spring. So I'll try to explain what we do at it. So first, we all go to DC, right? And then we make a trip to Capitol Hill. And as Griffin said, that's where we meet with, Griffin and I met with our Representative Carolyn Maloney and then Senators Gillibrand and Schumer. And first we request continued funding for a program that the TSA does with the CDC. And then there's, we also requested a bipartisan congressional caucus focusing exclusively on Tourette. And both of these programs help school teachers and doctors better assess their conditions in their respective fields. And I can say that it's really empowering to be able to go to Congress and talk about something that truly affects my life. And so the second part of the conference is that we practice the standard youth ambassador presentation that we give in classrooms. So the first time that I made the presentation was back earlier, a few months ago. It was before this summer. There was a girl named Paige. She's in 4th grade, and right. So you're welcome. So she goes to school in Staten Island, and her tics were getting worse and worse through the months. So her mom was hoping that I could do a presentation at her school to describe what Tourette syndrome is and how her classmates should respect her. So first I went with Lisa Hazen, and we went to Staten Island and we gave the presentation to the faculty of her school because the school administrators weren't so sure yet if the classmates were ready to hear it. So we made the presentation, and the faculty was pleased. So about a month ago, we were invited back to Staten Island, and I gave the presentation to Paige's fellow classmates. And her classmates knew what the disorder was, but they weren't sure about all the complexities about it, and they really weren't sure about how they should be treating Paige. So I did my presentation, and it was really great because they had all these questions, and all these fourth graders were really curious about the disorder, and they just really wanted to know how they can make their classmate feel comfortable, and it was really a great success. So I'm saying that I think that anyone who is a teenager who has Tourette syndrome or knows someone who has Tourette syndrome should become part of the Youth Ambassador program. Okay. I'm done. Thank you.
Give it up for the one and only Gardner Comfort!
Oh, I thought I had one more person to go, but now it's time to bring it. Hey everybody, how you doing? My name's Gardner Comfort. I am from New York originally. I was diagnosed with Tourette's when I was about 7. And I have a whole bunch of bullet points I want to get to, but and I'm going to do a little bit of sort of acting and a little bit of dance at the end, which we'll see. But basically, when I was about 2 or 3, I started having night terrors, and I don't know if anyone has experienced those. I think a lot of people with Tourette's do. But basically, they're nightmares that are incredibly horrifying. And for me, as a 2, 3-year-old, it was just such a bizarre, traumatic experience. My parents would come in, try to, see what was going on with me, help me, comfort me, and my eyes would open, but I would just be asleep, saying, "I'm so scared. I'm so scared." And I've had sort of flashbacks of them, in recent years, and I've had them, and I just, it's just this bizarre and awful experience. But that was sort of probably the first example of my Tourette's. I think my first tic apparently was licking my finger, which I feel like is sort of more habitual than I know of tics to be. But that's the interesting thing about Tourette's, is that every person's experience is completely different. It was hard. It was really confusing. And my mom tells the story of when I was 7 or 8, and we were talking about it one night, and I was just mystified, and I said, "Is this just going to keep on?" And she just says how sorry she felt for me. And of course it did, and my tics they sort of ramped up into adolescence, and it was really, really, really difficult. I had a lot of physical tics. I had a lot of high-pitched throat noises. I haven't done them in years, but I'll dust it off. It was sort of like that, kind of losing my voice. But I would knock my knees together, which was pretty painful. Thankfully, I never had coprolalia, so I never dealt with words or curses, which of course is an overblown stereotype. But it was a huge part of my life, and I would be on the train as a kid, and I would tic, and I'd look around because I was so concerned with what people thought, strangers, and that continued. I would get angry. I got really angry a lot of the time. Didn't understand what was going on with me. I had a huge amount of support from my parents, from family, from school to some degree, although I do relate to, I think, Griffin's mention of his first grade teacher. One of the sort of toughest parts of Tourette's for me was how hard it was, out in the world with, the social aspects of it, just the self-consciousness, and that I would bring it home and sort of make it even harder for myself. Take all those people, all those jerks really seriously, and just feel bad and take it out on the people I loved. And that was really sort of sad in retrospect. But I've learned over the years that all those people who really loved me, who put up with that, understand. I remember being on this bus every morning from the city, and I would have these tics, and I was so young I didn't feel comfortable explaining it. I probably didn't even really know what it was. But I'd come home every day and say, "Oh, they told me blah, they told me to stop. It was the whole bus, I felt horrible." And my mom would say, "Well, just explain it." And I'm like, "I don't want to explain it. Well, just tell them you feel nervous." So I'd go in the next day, tic away. And these kids say, "Stop, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I feel nervous." It doesn't always go so well with bullies. But what I do remember about that time is that there was some girl who went home and apparently talked to her dad about this problem on the bus, and she came back and said, "My dad said that he has a disease. He has a disease and we should stay away from him." When I was like 8. So, that stuff is really hard. I'm so thankful that I had support from my family and friends to get through stuff like that. I was a really good class clown. I learned that, I was like funny, and people enjoyed that. And I really enjoyed kind of like, entertaining. I realized that moving was using my body was really important. And suddenly my mom was a choreographer, and I grew up in the loft with dancers all over the place. And I got into dance, and I found that I was a good dancer. It just made me feel comfortable, so anyway, adolescence, junior high, sort of not doing well in school, and then I made it to Brooklyn Friends School, which is a small private school in downtown Brooklyn for high school, and everything kind of changed. I got on the soccer team, which was fantastic. We had this phenomenal team. We had all these kind of prodigies who would later go pro, and we won the state championships my senior year, and it was a big, huge part of my life to be athletic. I got more into dance. I discovered acting, which was crazy. Fascinating. This lady taught such a lovely class on genealogy. She found my grandfather's Ellis Island records. He came from Russia. And his wife. We always thought she was from Massachusetts, and no one knew anything about her. It turns out she was from Pennsylvania. This lady found her using the 1901 census. She's the only one who could ever find her. Oh, now where did my friend go? Good evening, welcome to Per Se, welcome to Brooklyn Social, welcome to Applebee's 125th, welcome to Sleepy's, the Mattress Professionals, welcome to the House of Relief, come in and relieve yourselves. Hi, Mr. Gonzalez, this is Mike calling from the Human Rights Campaign. Hello, this is Annalise, and I'm calling on behalf of Acorn. I was wondering if I could have just a moment of your time. Hello? Hey, you guys like stand-up comedy? Hi, sir, do you have a minute for the environment? Hello, I love your hat. Can I speak to you for a moment for Children International? Yeah, because then you got to deal with the garbage police. You got to deal with the postal police. Hi, can I make my own salad? Hola, mami. Dame un orden de arroz y frijol. Negro. Totone. Gracias, mami. Order in, I need 2 steak, both medium rare, 86 potatoes, sub celeriac. And I discovered that no matter how bad my tics were, anywhere, how horribly bad they could get, if I were on stage, they were gone. Taylor! Yeah, it's Christina. Can you hear me? Taylor! No, I'm in the library. And I just sort of absorbed theater as much as I could, and I very quickly decided that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. My tics were pretty consistent throughout high school, and I just remember, that one year I was somehow intellectually driven. I was just so focused on schoolwork and soccer and acting and dance and preparing for college. And somehow I discovered meditation, and it was so helpful. I got all A's, and I got myself into a good college. And I was starting to realize that I had something to offer. And that hadn't been the case in the past. It was always, for most people with Tourette's, in your 20s or in your late teens, they're going to go away. I was like, oh, that would be great. I can't wait. And then it happened. And then they came back. And they came back with so much more force than I'd ever had before. I was 23, 24, something like that, and that kind of early success in acting, which was notable, kind of fell apart, and I realized, oh, this is a crazy career I chose. Why don't you just be the actor with Tourette's? Why don't you just own it? Why don't you just admit that you have it? Because it actually helps you a lot, and it does. So you can check out my website, gardnercomfort.com. I'm going to put on there that I have Tourette's, and I'm not ashamed of it. Thank you.